Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Max is currently having a snooze and I've wanted to film this for the longest amount of time. So I thought I'd quickly try and do it now. I don't know how far we're going to get or how long he's going to sleep, so we will see. So I'm currently 21 weeks and 2 days pregnant with a baby number 2. I don't know if you can see from there. And I had a few questions just about my first trimester and just regarding the pregnancy, and I thought I would do, well, originally I wanted to do a video just like explaining how my first trimester's gone, and honestly I've just been so ill and so tired. I've just not had the energy to do it. I've got a bloody huge backlog of content for you guys anyway, so I've just not had the chance to do it. So that's why I suppose I'm not at the end of my first trimester. I'm 21 weeks pregnant instead when I'm actually filming this, so I'm going to try and remember everything from my first trimester and answer the few questions that I had as well. I don't even know where to start. So my first trimester, I feel like it was very similar to my pregnancy with Maximus. In terms of like, did I know I was pregnant and things like that, like with Max, my period was like 3 days late. We was actually on honeymoon. I don't know if I've mentioned this, but we was actually on honeymoon when we found out that we were pregnant with Max. So yeah, my period was like 3 days late, and I think we were just out there enjoying ourselves, and I was just kind of like, oh, hang on a minute, my period's late. And Harry originally was like, should we just wait until we get home? Because I think we were flying home like 2 or 3 days later. And I was like, yeah. And then we went for lunch and I was like, no, I can't. So we ended up testing while we was out there. So yeah, 3 days late, my period, and my boobs were really sore and really veiny, and I was kind of like, that's a bit different. So yeah, that's kind of, I didn't really even suspect that I was pregnant with Max. Just literally that my period was late, and then I noticed my boobs were sore afterwards. And then when I was looking back on things, I actually got really travel sick on the way to our honeymoon on the plane. And I only used to get travel sick as a child, so I hadn't been travel sick for ages. I remember texting my mum and dad and being like, oh, I got really sick, like I felt really sick, like on the plane over. And when I was speaking to my mum and dad after, they were like, that was really strange. So yeah, that was kind of like, I suppose, how we found out with Max, but I didn't really have any inkling that I was pregnant per se. It was just that when my period was late, I was like, because my periods were pretty on time. So yeah, that was with Max. And then obviously with this baby, we've been trying for a couple of months, and my cycles have been a bit all over the place, and I had like one cycle that was like 60 days. I remember I went to the GP, she was like, oh, you're breastfeeding and you're not even a year postpartum. She was like, it could just be that your body's just not got back into the rhythm yet. So I was like, okay, fine. So she was like, it's nothing to worry about, just keep an eye on it, and if it continues then come back. So but obviously that made it a little bit harder to, I suppose, try and track ovulation and my period dates, because it was just literally all over the place. And I felt like I was putting too much pressure on myself as well. So yeah, we'd been trying for a little while, and then I remember the week before we found out, I was really unwell. So I was just like really like tired. I kept putting myself back to sleep when Max was having his afternoon naps, and I kept saying to Harry that I just didn't feel right. I just didn't feel like, I just felt under the weather. It was really hard to explain. And then anyways, it got to the Sunday and my period was due on the Sunday, and I said to Harry, oh, maybe we should do a test, and he was like, oh, I don't want you to be disappointed again. And I was like, yeah, he's right, but I was like, I'd rather know, and then if I know that I'm not, I can wait for my period and I can expect my period. So we decided to do the test, and obviously I found out I was pregnant. So they were kind of like the only symptoms that I had. Just felt really under the weather, really tired in that week before I found out. And obviously I didn't even really miss a day of my period. I literally tested on the day that my period was due. And yeah, we found out that we were pregnant. So yeah, my first trimester has been pretty similar to Max's. I felt sick pretty much throughout my whole first trimester. and I was sick throughout my whole first trimester. And it was pretty much the same with Max. I would say the only thing that was maybe slightly different with Max and then with the second baby is that I was sick pretty much every morning with Max, and I felt sick, I suppose, throughout the day, like a little bit on and off throughout the day, and I only ever threw up like in the evening, like maybe like a handful of times. With this baby, there's been a lot of foods that they haven't liked. So like there was a few like dinners that I had like in the evenings obviously, and like I'd thrown up, whereas with Max it was more like morning sickness, but with this one it's been morning sickness, feeling sick the whole day non-stop, and then yeah, evening sickness as well. So I'd say that's probably the only like main difference between like the sickness side of things. Other symptoms that I've had with this baby have been, I've had loads of cramping. So I had 0 cramping with Max, so that was really new for me this pregnancy, and I actually got really quite worried at one point and was kind of like, oh, like, is there something wrong? Because I'd never had cramping before, but my sister had said that she had had some cramping, and the midwife said that it's quite normal as well with like implantation and things like that. So yeah, I just found it really strange and I didn't expect that. So that was one of my other symptoms. I also had a lot of food aversions, so there were a lot of foods that I normally love that I couldn't eat, and then foods that I normally don't really eat and then was loving. And I mean, I can't really remember everything off the top of my head now. I wish I had actually done this video earlier. One of the foods that I really was obsessed with was bacon. I was literally having bacon for breakfast and lunch. Bacon sandwiches, bacon on toast, bacon with eggs, like fry-ups. I was just obsessed with bacon. Another one of the foods that I was obsessed with is that, is it Bachelor's? It's like a packet of pasta. I used to love that as a child, and then I've had it a few times as an adult. Like, I don't mind it. I do like it, but I was like obsessed with it at one point. Oh, and pot noodles. I was obsessed with pot noodles, but I mean, you take anything you can take at this point, because I was throwing up so much that I was just kind of like, I need to eat something. So I kind of went off crisps in my first trimester, and I'm a big crisp gal. Like, if you know me, you know I love crisps. So yeah, I went off crisps quite a lot, and then I really went on to sweets, chocolate. Now I normally love chocolate, but I'm really not a big sweets fan, like normally, but it seems to be that every time I'm pregnant I'm obsessed with sweets. Because it was the same with Max. I remember like in my first trimester with Max, I just had like a packet of like gummy bears, and I was just like munching on them throughout the day because it was like the only thing that, like, one of the only things that I loved. So yeah, that was probably another thing. Oh, and the other thing that I really became obsessed with was like a microwaved curry. Like Aldi, Lidl, Tesco's, like literally basically every supermarket that you go to, they do like an essentials chicken curry, and it is the basic of basics of a chicken curry and rice, and I was obsessed with those for probably about 3 weeks, I want to say. And I remember like in the evening, if I was like peckish, I'd be like, oh, I'm gonna go and have chicken curry. So yeah, I think that was probably the only sort of food and cravings and things like that I can think of anyway, but I know bacon was like my number one. So I had a few questions on my Instagram page, and one of the questions was how did I lose the baby weight basically from my first pregnancy. So I mean, in my first pregnancy with Maximus, I lost a lot of weight in my first trimester, and that was because I was being sick quite a lot. I don't know how much I lost, because honestly I try not to keep track of my weight too much. I became quite obsessive over it at one point, so try not to keep track of my weight too much, but I know I did lose quite a bit of weight in my first trimester with Maximus, and that was purely just because of the sickness and then not being able to eat, and then when I was eating it was like tiny little amounts, so that was that. And then I think after I gave birth to Maximus, it was mostly breastfeeding. So I have exclusively breastfed Max from when he was newborn. So I would say maybe breastfeeding, potentially. I know they say that breastfeeding uses up a lot more calories. It's a lot, I mean, there's a lot that goes into breastfeeding, but it's very physically exhausting, I think. And I was finding that I was very hungry, very thirsty, especially in those early days of breastfeeding. My body definitely got more used to it as time went on. But yeah, maybe breastfeeding. And the only other thing, and it's a bad one, it's not something that I would be like, yeah, go and do this. It's just that I found it really, really hard to actually find time to eat in the newborn stages, unfortunately. Max obviously was newborn, I was a new mum, I was trying to find a rhythm, I was trying to do housework, and you know, there were a lot of things that I thought were important when Max was a newborn, as in like housework and things like that, and that I prioritised, and of course I prioritised Max as well. So but I remember saying to Harry, like, one day, he was like, oh, have you eaten? Like, what did you eat today? And I was like, oh, I haven't eaten yet. And he was like, what? And it was like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And I think I'd had like a juice and like a cereal bar in the morning or something. And it was like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And he was like, Rihanna, you're breastfeeding. Like, you know, you need to get your strength back up, blah, blah, blah. And he was like, you need to make time. And I was like, oh, but he keeps crying. And I remember Max had, he was like a Velcro baby. He still is. But I just couldn't put him down, and at that point I hadn't learnt to use like the baby wrap or a sling or anything like that, so I felt bad every time I was putting him down to like go and make myself something to eat, which is not an excuse, and it definitely won't be this time around, because I know how much food can obviously really help with breastfeeding, staying hydrated, things like that. So breastfeeding was a massive one, and I was really lucky that I was actually able to continue breastfeeding or even begin breastfeeding, because food wise it was quite hard. So yeah, I mean, I do actually weigh less now than I did before I got pregnant with Max, but I mean, I suppose just running around after a toddler now. I don't actually know how I've really lost any weight, but thank you. But one of the other questions I got was, are you going to find out the gender or keep it a surprise? We already know the gender, so I'm trying to be very, very careful in this video, because I have a whole other video that I want to share with you guys after this. But we know the gender, and we was always going to find out the gender. We found out with Max, we couldn't wait. And then this time around, I was like, yeah, let's find out again. I did actually suggest to Harry, if we have any more children, which I'm sure we will, but if we have any more children, maybe we should keep it a surprise and like wait until I give birth. But Harry was like, oh, I don't know if I can wait that long, and then I was like, maybe I can't. But we do know the gender, we found out, and obviously we're over the moon, so you will find out in hopefully the next video. I think it's the next video, but I've got so much content, guys, it's a joke. One of the other questions that I received from a few people was, am I going to continue breastfeeding Max? So the answer was / is yes. So my milk has actually dried up about 2 weeks ago now, so about 19 weeks pregnant. And honestly, I have been absolutely devastated. I could not stop crying. I mean, obviously I'm pregnant, so I'm bloody hormones are everywhere anyway. But I had suspected for about a week and a half that Max wasn't getting much milk, and I couldn't really hear him like swallowing, like when he was on the boob. So I got the pump down, I cleaned all the pump parts and everything, because I hadn't used the pump in ages. And I thought, oh, I'll try and pump, and nothing. And I tried hand expressing and nothing. And I mean, I tried basically everything. I mean, before I did my research, but I tried basically everything of, you know, trying to increase your milk supply or get your milk supply back, and everything that I've read, I've posted in forums and things like that for advice, and everything that I've read and what people have said is that basically there's nothing you can do to increase your milk supply or get your milk supply back when you are pregnant, and it's due to the hormones that the pregnancy and that the baby is obviously produced, that I'm producing and the baby's producing, that we're giving each other. It's to do with that. So I was, of course, absolutely devastated. If anyone knows me or knows, maybe I've mentioned it before in other videos, I've wanted to breastfeed Max for as long as possible. And I said at least until he was 2. But if he wanted to wean beforehand, then that was fine. And if he wanted to wean after, that was fine as well. So I was really, really looking forward to tandem feeding the new baby and Maximus. But obviously my milk has dried up. However, Maximus is not bothered. He is dry nursing, which is obviously a new term that I've discovered in my breastfeeding journey. And it is basically where he is using the boob for comfort more than anything. Now, Max doesn't really breastfeed throughout the whole day. He literally only goes on the boob now for nap times, bedtime, and he will go on like first thing in the morning when he first wakes up. So it's not like he's feeding loads throughout the day or anything like that anyway. And he pretty much sleeps through the night now. He's really good, and he does pretty much sleep through the night. So obviously that's probably where my milk supply, you know, sort of drastically took a turn and started like going down, just because he wasn't needing as much or didn't want as much. And then slowly, as I was getting, I suppose, towards like 19 weeks pregnant, it's just completely dried up and literally I cannot get anything. So I'm absolutely heartbroken, and I can't talk about it for too long because I will start crying because I am so hormonal. But it has been such an incredible journey with Max so far, and I probably will do a separate video just talking about our breastfeeding journey at some point and how special it's been to me, and all my tips and tricks and things that I've learnt along the way for you guys. But I have hope. Like I said, he is dry nursing and he's not bothered that he's not actually getting any milk. So what we're doing at the moment is we bring up his little bottle of water. If he wants a drink, he has a drink, and then he'll put it back, and then he'll go back on the boob and he'll go to sleep on the boob. So that's what's working for us. The only problem with that is that it's very sore, and yeah, it hurts quite a bit. It's normally when he first goes on, and then after that it's fine, but I mean, generally, it's like someone said to me, it's most likely hormones because my boobs are pretty sore all day. The other thing I read as well is that obviously my colostrum will come back in at some point during this pregnancy. Some people said theirs came in from 16 weeks, some people said from 20 weeks. Obviously, I'm 21 weeks and 2 days, whatever it is. So, I mean, I haven't seen anything yet, but potentially he could be getting tiny little amounts and I just don't realise. But yeah, I'm hoping and praying that he will continue being happy dry nursing for now, and that my colostrum will come back in and he'll still be happy, and then my milk will come in once I give birth and he will still be happy to tandem feed. So that is the plan. Obviously plans don't always go to plan, unfortunately, because this is not what I wanted. But my body is doing what it's supposed to be doing to grow this baby. So you know, what can I do? This is what's happening right now. So I've come to terms with the fact that that's how it is for the minute. And obviously we're still having sort of mummy and Max time, because he'll, you know, our bonding time, because he still wants to dry nurse. So that's where we're at with that. But fingers crossed, in terms of the question, fingers crossed, when my milk comes back in or my colostrum comes back in, he'll still be happy and he'll still carry on feeding, and hopefully I can tandem feed both babies. One of the other questions that I've had from a few people as well has been if we are going to be putting Max into his own room / bed. Because as many of you know, Max sleeps in our bed and he's co-slept with us and bed shared with us for I don't even know how long now. Me and Harry have spoken about it quite a bit. I mean, for me, Max kind of sleeps like this way between me and Harry now. And obviously I'm getting more pregnant as the time goes on, so it can be a little bit uncomfortable at times. I also have really bad sciatica, as some of you know. And when I got to my 3rd trimester with Max, they said that I need to be sleeping on my left side. And currently I sleep on my right side or on my back, so that I can, I suppose, breastfeed Max. I say breastfeed, but dry nurse Max, if he needs it in the night. So in terms of that, it's a little bit tricky, like with bedtime. But the thing that me and Harry kind of don't want to do either is that we put him into his own bed, settle him into his own bed and his own bedroom, and then he knows that the baby's with us, and we really don't want him to feel like, I suppose, left out. So I don't think that me and Harry are ready to try and do that transition yet. I'm not due until January, so we have a few months until then. Potentially, you know, Max might want to try his own bed, but I don't think me and Harry are going to rush it. Obviously we want to put the new baby in Moses' basket or next to me or whatever. We haven't even really discussed that yet, to be honest. But Max can then still sleep in our bed. So the only thing that I'm a little bit worried about is just, I remember how much Max woke in those, I don't even know how long, feels like a blur now, but I remember he woke sort of every hour and a half, 2 hours. So I just wonder how disruptive that's going to be for Max's sleep. So that's the only thing that I'd suppose that I'm a little bit worried about. So yeah. The other question that I had was if Max and the new baby are going to share a room, like nursery details and things like that. Obviously I'm sitting in Max's room at the moment, and I love this room so much. It's so beautiful. It's got such a big place in my heart because me and Harry did this together, and we were just, yeah, I mean, it's just, I don't know, it's just magical. Ideally, I mean, Max has so much toys, it is a joke. Ideally we would like to put Max and the new baby into our other spare room, which currently has all of our loft stuff in. So Harry is currently in the process, he's finished the garden pretty much, there's a few little bits but nothing crazy, but he's gone from doing the garden to now sorting out our loft, which he has done an incredible job, and it's near, I think he's done about half now. So a lot of that stuff in the spare room is going to be able to go up into the loft. But I'm just really sad to be saying, I suppose, a little goodbye to this room. We're not going to like strip it down, like strip the wallpaper or anything like that. I think what we'll do is just move everything into the new room. We would prefer Max and the baby to, I suppose, share a room so they've got all their toys in one place. For now, later on we would split the rooms. But again, we don't know how many children we're actually set on having, so if it happens for us, it happens for us. So I don't know. But yeah, the plan at the moment is that we'll be sort of putting Max into the big room, and I do want to get him a floor bed as well, but obviously the baby will be with us for at least the first 6 months anyway, so that's kind of where we're at. So I had my 12-week scan, they said everything was fine, and yeah, I think the only thing was that I was a few days behind in terms of like estimated due date, but that normally always happens anyway. I think with Max I was a few days ahead. So yeah, obviously had my 12-week scan, that was all fine. And obviously before my 12-week scan I had my booking appointment with my midwives as well, my community midwives. So yeah, that went like all to plan. It was really nice going back and seeing, obviously I've got a lot of the same midwives who knew me from my pregnancy with Max, so it was really nice and they were all really excited. Then like my old midwife who was actually here when I delivered Max, I'd actually seen her a few weeks before, I think it was like a week before I found out actually. And she was, oh, are you ready for the next one? And I was like, yeah. I said, we're trying, but I said, never know when it will happen. And then when I went in for my booking appointment, she was like, did you know? I was like, no, I didn't. So yeah, it was really nice just to see like all the midwives and stuff. So and my booking appointment went absolutely fine as well. Obviously they go through like all of your history and, you know, just basically everything about you and about Harry, and then they went through my birth and like pregnancy details, like with Max, if there was anything they needed to know and things like that. So yeah, that was all fine. So I had to do a urine sample, they did my blood pressure, and a carbon monoxide test. I am a non-smoker, but they do it anyway, they offer it anyway. And then I had to have blood tests as well. Unfortunately, my blood tests had actually been labelled wrong and I had to go back about a week later and have them redone, and they couldn't get anything out of me. They had to do one arm, then they did the other arm, then they did my hand in the end. So Yeah, but that was all fine as well. And obviously they offer a load of testing as well. So that that was kind of where we're at for our first trimester. So yeah, I mean, my first trimester, I would say I've just been very, very tired. It's been very different in terms of when I was pregnant with Max. Obviously, I didn't have another child. I was working full time and I was working a long shift and doing a lot of travelling. I think the only difference with that is just obviously when I was working, if I wanted to come home and just sit and do nothing, that's exactly what I would do, because I didn't have the responsibility of having a child. Whereas this time around, I found it really tiring, just because obviously Max needs me pretty much all day, and he wakes at sort of 5:40 and he goes to bed at about 7:30. So I would say it's been very exhausting physically, and honestly I have been putting myself back to sleep when he's been going to sleep because I need the rest as well. So I would say that. I'd say the other thing that I noticed, I suppose, just mentally, is that I actually felt very guilty. We wanted another baby. We knew we wanted another baby for forever, basically. We knew we didn't just want to have one. We always said if we got the opportunity and we was blessed with another baby, we'd be so happy because that's what we wanted. But I actually, even though I knew it was potentially going to happen, and then when I found out, I actually felt very, very guilty for Max, just because he wasn't even a year old when we found out. It was like just before his birthday, a couple of weeks before his birthday. So I felt very guilty. Obviously I give all of my time to Max throughout the day, throughout the whole week basically. So we go to groups and we do so many different things. Obviously I was a nursery practitioner before, so I do so many activities at home with him, go and see our friends and things like that. And I started to feel very guilty that, one, I couldn't do a lot of things with him in my first trimester just because I was so tired and I was so sick. So I felt very guilty about that. And then I also felt very guilty that when the new baby comes, that Max is going to feel left out or pushed out, and that I'm not going to be able to give him all of my attention the way I normally would. And obviously I've spoken to people that have got more than one child. I've spoken to my mum. I'm one of four. I've spoken to loads of people, and we all said like it's very normal to feel guilty about it or feel some sort of guilt about the whole situation. And it is kind of like a double-edged sword, because it's like you feel guilty, like I feel guilty for Max, and then in the same breath I then felt guilty like on the new baby, because it's like the new baby won't have my attention in that same way either that Max had it the first time round. So it's a completely different journey, and I suppose I kind of expected it to feel very similar, but it has been quite different so far. So yeah, and then mentally, like, my mood has been very up and down, and I think that is more related to the fact that I've been quite unwell. So like when I feel rubbish and I'm being sick and I literally cannot leave the house because of it, obviously that puts you in a bit of a mood and makes you feel, I suppose, quite low. And like I said, it then turned into guilt because it was kind of like we can't go and do like your normal activities that I would do with Mac. So yeah, there's a lot of emotions there, and then obviously the fact that you're pregnant anyway and so hormonal. And I'm so blessed that we're getting this opportunity to have another baby. It's just crazy. And I feel so blessed. I can't even describe it. Having Max in our lives has been the biggest joy and the biggest blessing in the whole world. And I always say, I feel like I always express to people when I speak to them in person, when I speak to you guys on here, like how much he actually means to us. He's changed our whole world, and he is literally everything. So to know that we're going to have another baby and we're going to get to love another baby, and another baby is going to love us. That is just incredible. And loads of people said to me, like, you managed to find the time, like you split your time, you find more time. Because obviously that was one of the things that I was worried about, but I am so blessed that we get to do this, and that our baby is healthy, and yeah, I suppose like that I'm healthy. I mean, apart from sickness, I am healthy, and that is the main thing. So yeah, that is pretty much everything about my first trimester. I'm sure there'll be loads of stuff that I missed out. I always think that I should write something down on like a notepad so that I've got like reference to things I'm going to talk about. Maybe I will do that next time. But yeah, that is pretty much everything about my first trimester. If you guys have any questions, please let me know on here. You can comment on this video, or follow me on Instagram or TikTok and send me a message. But yeah, any questions, let me know. But thank you so much for watching this video, and we will see you for the next one.